Hey guys, in this video I'll show you a powerful heavy attack sorcerer DPS build that can parse up to 115k. The build focuses on amplifying heavy attacks with the Surgeon's Mail item set and the Empower buff, sourced from the Might of the Guild passive, procced by constantly using Ulfsild's Contingency. Sorcerer is the perfect class for that, because of its pets. Because heavy attacks take up a lot of time, making you unable to spare many GCDs for other abilities. The build is also on my website, so if you prefer written guides over YouTube videos, you can read it there instead. The link will be in the description. So let's start off with skills. This is the regular skill setup. As I said before, heavy attacking takes up a lot of time, so we want to prioritize skills that are entirely or almost entirely passive, like the Banner Bearer, Bound Aegis, and Pets. Ulfsild's Contingency, with the Shock, Lingering Torment, and Force combination on it, is your source of the Empower buff, which increases damage done by heavy attacks by 70%. Since Ulfsild's Contingency is a Mage's Guild skill, it will trigger the Might of the Guild passive, which grants you Empower for 10 seconds. It also deals decent damage on AoE and grants you the Minor Force buff, increasing your critical damage by 10%. Ulfsild's Contingency is delayed until the next skill cast, but whenever it's needed, you can activate it early by bashing your enemy. If you cast this ability as you're finishing your heavy attack, the Empower you gain from it will start working just in time to boost the final tick of that heavy attack you just finished. Use Scalding Rune instead, if you don't have access to scribing. Next we have Daedric Prey, an ability that deals decent damage and increases the damage your pet do to that target by 45%. Next we have Summon Volatile Familiar, an ability that summons a pet, which can be reactivated to deal damage on an AoE around this pet for 20 seconds. Next we have Summon Twilight Matriarch, an ability that summons a pet, which can also be reactivated to heal 2 friendly targets. Next we have Banner Bearer with the Magic, Cavalier's Charge, and Heroism combination on it. It will increase your magical damage done by 6%, grant you 60 weapon damage thanks to the Celerity champion point, and grant you Minor Heroism, increasing your ultimate generation. It also severely decreases your sustain, but it's not an issue on a heavy attack build. Use Crystal Weapon on front bar and Barb Trap on back bar instead, if you don't have access to scribing. Next we have Flawless Dawnbreaker. An ultimate will keep slotted to activate the Slayer and banish the Wicked passives, which increase weapon and spell damage by 3%, and generate ultimate on kills. You can also use it towards the end of the fight, if it's obvious you won't get enough ultimate for another Summon Charge Atronach. Next we have Bound Aegis, an ability that will passively increase your max magicka by 8%. It will also grant you Minor Resolve and Minor Protection, increasing your survivability. Next we have Elemental Blockade, a ground dot that will constantly reapply your backbar weapon enchantment. It will also deal increased damage thanks to the Crushing Wall set, and proc of balance if your supports aren't already doing it. And lastly we have Summon Charge Atronach, the most powerful ultimate Sorcerer has access to. It will also keep proccing Concussion stats effect, which will keep up the Minor Vulnerability debuff, which increases enemies damage taken by 5%. An ally can also activate the Charge Lightning synergy, which grants all nearby allies Major Berserk for 10 seconds, which increases damage done by 10%. Now let's talk about situational skills. Whenever you need to slot situational skills, replace Banner Bearer. So first we have Crystal Weapon. Use it whenever you're the only sorcerer in your group. This skill will trigger the Exploitation passive, which grants you and everyone in your group Minor Prophecy, which increases critical chance by 6%. Next we have Barb Trap. Since Banner Bearer cannot be one-barred, use Barb Trap on your back bar, whenever you have to slot Crystal Weapon on your front bar. Next we have Elemental Susceptibility. Use it as your source of Major Breach, whenever you're assigned to mechanics that separate you from your group, like for example Portal in the Navinten's fight, Reef Hearts in the Reef Guardian fight, Bridge in the Teleria fight, etc. And lastly we have Summon Twilight Tormentor. This morph deals a bit more damage than the Summon Twilight Matriarch morph, but you lose access to the heal. It is an option depending on what you're trying to achieve. Use it if you don't mind sacrificing a backup heal for a bit more damage. And this is the skill setup for parsing on the practice dummy. The only change is using Summon Twilight Tormentor instead of Summon Twilight Matriarch, since we won't ever need a heal during a dummy parse. Now moving on to gear. This is the default setup for boss fights. Surgeon's Mail, Deadly Strike, Crushing Wall, and Until Mirror's Construct is what I suggest you to run if you don't want to ever swap your gear. But now I'm going to get into details and describe situational sets, which can be stronger than this setup in specific situations. For example, a default setup for trash packs would replace Deadly Strike with Sul'Zan's Torment. And then I'll give you a bunch of alternative sets, which aren't stronger, but they're decent, and much easier to obtain. so you can use them before you get this gear. But before that, there are a few more things I need to explain. When choosing different situational sets, you can only replace Deadly Strike and Until Construct. Surgeon's Mail is too strong and too crucial for this build to ever be replaced. Ideally you want your second 5-piece set to be medium weight, but choosing a light set is also an option in dungeons, if none of your group members are providing any penetration. So let's go over the situational sets. Susan's Torment, as I said before, is the best set for trash packs, but it's also useful for boss fights that regularly spawn smaller adds. Highland Sentinel is the strongest set if you are able to stand still in a certain encounter. Mauve the Infernal is better than Until Construct in fights where you can't reliably retrieve your axe. Roar of Alkosh is a support set that allows you to provide 6000 penetration for your team, as long as they provide you with at least one synergy every 10 seconds. It's extremely beneficial to have at least one Alkosh user in trial groups. Using Alkosh in dungeons will also allow you to keep using the Thief Mundus, even if your tank doesn't use any penetration sets. Now let's go over a bunch of alternative sets you can use before you obtain the best gear. I'm going to list sets that are crafted, that drop from Overland, or from dungeons. So simply pick 2 sets that are easiest for you to get, with at least one of them being a medium set. As for crafted sets, we have Order's Wrath, New Moon Acolyte, and Highland Sentinel. As for Overland, we have Mother Sorrow, which is a light set from Deshan, Back Alley Gourmet, which is a light set from Galen and Iphelon, and Dragon Guard Elite, which is a medium set from Southern Elsewhere. Keep in mind that crafted and Overland sets are tradable and can be bought from other players. Now as for dungeon sets, we have Stormmaster, which is a medium set from Tempest Island. We have Undaunted Infiltrator, which is a medium set from Arx Corinium. We have Undaunted Unweaver, which is a light set from Arx Corinium. Keep in mind you'll have to add a stamina skill like Crystal Weapon to your skill setup with this one. And we have Tsogven's Warband, which is a medium set from Frostvault. And here is one additional tip. If you can rely on your supports to provide off balance, you can replace Frontbar Shock Enchant with Flame Enchant, and replace Backbar Lightning Staff with an Inferno Staff. And this is the setup I use for the 115k dummy Parse. It uses Highland Sentinel instead of Deadly Strike, and it uses Flame and Shock Enchants instead of Shock and Weapon damage. Highland Sentinel is something I already mentioned in the situational sets. I couldn't really put it in the default setup, because there will be fights that will completely invalidate it, but it's usable in way more encounters than people think. A lot of people seem to think that Highland is only an option when you can stand completely still throughout the entire fight, but that's not the case. Highland gives a ton of stats, and even with imperfect uptime, it outperforms other sets. I've used it even in the Fallgraven fight, while also having to always be at the end of the line, because it was a pug. Moving on to champion points. In the blue tree you want to use Weapons Expert, which increases light and heavy attack damage by 20%, Deadly Aim, which increases single target damage by 6%, Fighting Finesse, which increases critical damage and healing by 8%, and Exploiter, which increases damage against off-balance enemies by 10%. Replace Deadly Aim with Biting Aura in AoE fights. In the red tree, you want to use Bond's Vitality, which increases your max health by 1400, Fortified, which increases your armor by 1731, Celerity, which increases your movement speed by 10%, and Rejuvenation, which increases all of your recoveries by 90. Moving on to race. The difference between best and worst race is about 5% of DPS, and there is no content in the entire game that you'll be blocked from completing because of choosing a bad race. With that said, the best races for 12-man content are High Elf and Dark Elf. The best race for 4-man content is Khajiit. Other decent options are Orc and Breton. Moving on to Mundus. Most of the time, you should use the Thief Mundus, which increases your critical chance. In 4-man dungeons, you will most likely need to use the Lover Mundus, which increases your penetration. It won't be needed if you're wearing light armor, or if your tank is using penetration sets like Crimson Oath's Rife. But in the end, it's more optimal for the tank to bring sets that boost other stats, like weapon damage, critical damage, or provide important debuffs, while you bring the penetration yourself. Especially since the penetration provided by the tank could end up wasted if other damage dealers in your group are light armor users or arcanists. You can also bring the penetration yourself with the Alkosh item set, as I mentioned before in the gear section, and I think this is the best option, as long as you can rely on your teammates to provide synergies. Because even though Alkosh is a support set, It has really good stat lines and a minor slayer line, so you'll most likely end up with more DPS, with Alkosh and Thief Mundus, rather than with a regular DPS set and Lover Mundus. And even if you end up with a slightly lower DPS yourself, it's definitely going to increase your overall group DPS, which is what matters most. As for attributes, it's extremely simple. You should always put all 64 points into magicka. Moving on to food. Most of the time, you should use the Arteon Pickled Fish Bowl, which increases your max health and max magicka. Solitude Salmon Millet Soup is a cheaper alternative. For dummy parsing, you can use Tomato Garlic Chutney, which gives you only max magicka. Moving on to potions. Use the Spell Power potions. They'll provide major sorcery and major prophecy, which are crucial buffs. You can craft them by combining Lady's Smoke, Namira's Rot, and Cornflower. And now, here's the 115k Parse. And that's it for this video. If you have any more questions, you can comment down below or join our Discord server Wildheart. As always, feedback will be appreciated. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to my channel and check out my Twitch. Thanks for watching and see you next time.